Many businesses need to know what customers want and need, to know what's working and what's not, to know so as to plan effectively, efficiently, and economically, and so on. But all that knowing depends on data, or some people call it data, but we'll call it data, lots of it. Sadly, data has also become a tarnished word as the devious and the dubious seek it out and grab it for often nefarious means. But handling data well can be a force for good, improving lives, improving productivity, creating jobs, and improving profitability. Putting integrity into handling that data is Dublin-based Truata. Let's meet its CEO, Felix Marx. Welcome, Felix.
Thank you, Malcolm. I'm very pleased to have me. I look forward to our discussion. And yeah, let's see where this leads us.
Yeah, and you're in a very, very hot Austria today, aren't you?
Oh, yes, we have north of 35 degrees in the shade. Yeah, usually no air conditions in the homes. Right. So I apologize, but it's really hot here. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Austria is beautiful, but you'll be looking back to get back to Dublin sometime. So let's get started. Give me a quick overview of Truata, your services, and what you do for your customers.
Yeah, so Truata was actually established in March 2018. Founding members have been MasterCard and IBM. And the whole purpose of Truata is really to support businesses with privacy-enhanced analytics and GDPR create anonymization. So that is the whole purpose of Truata. Initially, it was very much focused around GDPR, because that was a hot topic in 2018, as you remember, went in effect 25th of May 2018. In the meantime, privacy has actually taken up everywhere in the world. So we are a global enterprise in the meantime, and we try to support our customers globally with our privacy enhancing solutions. So what are the privacy enhancing solutions? We provide consulting for our customers in order to help them to understand what data they have, how it can be utilized, which insights can be generated, but more importantly, where the risk lies, because it's all about risk management. It is about anonymizing versus data utility, and that's where we come in. And then, our core flagship product is an anonymization platform, which is GDPR Create, where we anonymize data for our customers and then provide them insights and analytics according to whatever their business needs are.
Okay. Now, you say you anonymize data, which I understand, but what are the challenges of data anonymization? Can such a process ever be fail-safe?
That's a very good question, Malcolm, because the term anonymization is very often misused, as we see it in public and as we read it in publications or in the internet. Anonymization is not always true anonymization. It is not sufficient or not enough just to remove direct identifiers or obfuscate personal identifiers. The data is still at risk. True anonymization is a very complex process which requires really, really skilled data scientists and privacy experts in order to manage the balance between data utility, what can I do with the data, and reducing the privacy risk, so the risk of re-identification. And that requires sophisticated technology, that requires, of course, the right people to do it, and that requires also legal and structural safeguards, which, not everyone has in place.
Yeah, look, as you can tell from my gray hair, I've been around for a while, and I remember, both of us, I remember though, at first of my sort of sales and marketing training all those years ago, that 60% of my future business would lie in my existing or dormant customers. So that rung a bell when I started seeing what you were doing. Can every business benefit from mining its past data and existing data? Is there gold out there for everyone?
I do believe so, yeah. I honestly do believe that businesses can really, really benefit from its historical data if applied the right way. And if you look at GDPR, for instance, there are limitations as to how long you can use your data, how long you can hold your data, and what you can do with your data, depending on the consent you had been given by your customers. Now, if you apply the right techniques, or if you anonymize the data, all these limitations go away. You can actually retain data over a very long period of time. You can create longitudinal insights. And because it's not considered personal data anymore, you can also, withdrawal of consent, all these things don't apply anymore. So you really have a huge data universe if you have the data, historical data, which you can apply against your business. And you can apply it against operational efficiencies. You can apply it against future growth. And more importantly, I believe data is really a key source for innovation in every business. And that may be product innovation, that may be innovation in terms of how I interact with my customers, that may be innovation in how I combine all my channels towards a customer. So there's so many things you can do. It's really amazing. Having said that, and I will always keep saying that privacy needs to be there by design. So for me, privacy is the most important thing.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there, and we'll talk further as we move in on privacy and integrity. What are the key sectors that you're capitalizing on?
Yeah, so that's a good one as well. Naturally, with MasterCard as a founding member, we are very strong in the finance sector, financial services, also retail. But we also moved on and above that. So the airline sector, even though it's really being hurt badly these days, is a big opportunity for us. And we have been doing a lot of things for airlines from Japan to the US. And increasingly interesting becomes also healthcare. Even though I have to say that health data is somewhat different than the data you would know from a financial institution like a bank or a retailer. It's more complex. It's lots of images. It needs other treatment. But innovation in healthcare, we all need. And for that source is data. And we are looking into this as well.
I find that fascinating because I've just participated in telemedicine with my GP, and I must say it's far better than having to, queue up or go into town or whatever it may be. There, huge changes we're going to see in healthcare. We know. So, walk me through a client flow process from, say, first contact by them to you through to first results.
Yeah. So the first step always is trying to understand what are really the requirements, what are the needs, and which data exists in a client universe. So in most cases, our engagement starts with a consulting engagement, which is usually 2 to 4 weeks, where we try to understand which data is available, where we explore jointly with the customer what his use cases are and what he tries to achieve, and where the risk lies within his data, the risk of re-identification, the risk of breaching privacy rules and laws. And once this is agreed, we basically come up with a scorecard which says, those are your opportunities, those are your risks, and against these scorecards, we then explore the opportunities and address the risk with our tools. On real life data. That is, so to say, the second phase. We call that a proof of concept. And the second phase usually then moves into an anonymization engagement or into a licensing engagement where our customers are using our risk assessment and transformation tools.
Yeah, I like that initial diagnostic we're using the scorecard. Can customers compile KPIs or key performance indicators from that scorecard, by the way?
Exactly. We want our work to be measured. So we actually agree on KPIs in the consulting phase, where we clearly say, I just give an example. Your customer retention goes up by 15%. If you do this and this and this and this. Don't take the 15% as the golden egg, but it goes up by a certain percentage. We agree on that. We apply the tools. We do the anonymization. We provide the analytics. Either the customer can do the analytics himself through a so-called self-service portal, or we do the analytics for him, and then we measure the result.
Yeah. Now, let's talk now about the important person, your customer's customer. How can companies get more value from their data whilst not losing their customers' trust?
Yeah, so I believe customer trust is very essential. That shouldn't be just a tick box, yeah, or a nice to have. I believe it should actually be something which is part of your DNA. Yeah, I firmly believe that enterprises or companies who take customer trust serious and act that way, not only by the written letter, but also by the spirit behind it, those will be the successful ones. And we have done a survey just recently where we figured out that 70% of global customers believe they should own the digital identity. Yeah? And even more importantly, almost 80% have taken steps to reduce the digital footprint as long as they don't know what's really happening with the data. Yeah? So those are very strong messages. And we did this research over the US, Europe, and Asia Pacific. So I think it's very representative. And it really shows how much the consumer values his privacy and trust. And that's why I say, companies who actually actively work on reestablishing or continuing the trust, or having the trust of the customers will be the successful ones.
Well, to me, who doing my research, trust and integrity exude from everything I was finding out about Truata. We might have slightly discussed this one, but let's just focus back on this question. I don't know what I need to know could be the cry of many a marketing or financial chief officer. So how does Truata help them clearly see what they need to know?
Yeah, so very often there is an old problem and there's a new problem, the way we look at it. Yeah, the old problem is that I have 100% of my data available, yeah, but 50% of this is usable, 50% is not. Which are the right 50% to use? Yeah. So that's where we can come in, because we are looking at 100% of the data universe in a privacy preserving or anonymized way, and tell them exactly what they can use for which use case. But today, even more importantly, I think the question marketing officers and chief financial officers and everybody who really runs a business is actually, I have 100% of my data, but which data is at risk? That's even more important. Huh?
Yeah.
And we help them to identify the data at risk, mitigate the risk, and then work with the mitigated or the true 100% data universe and help them do the analytics according to the use cases and business cases they need.
Yeah, it really is quite frightening, that vulnerability of data. I just had an email in from a university yesterday telling me about Blackout, the big company that had been penetrated 25 universities in the UK. It's quite frightening. You recently announced a global top 100 data visionaries list. What was your thinking behind compiling such a list? Is it to identify people or their companies or their data achievements? How do you see it of value to businesses?
Yeah, so first of all, we wanted to recognize people who are using data to innovate, to drive businesses successfully, and doing that in a privacy respecting way. So that was the main idea behind it. We also wanted to identify companies across different industries. And if you see our data visionaries, our 100 top global data visionaries, it goes across all industries, from financial sector to retail, to airline, to healthcare. And we wanted to bring these people together and actually also help to facilitate the discussion around what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what do I do, what can I do better, how can I learn? Because I think it requires a community really to strongly drive privacy enhanced analytics, and also how shall I say, basically to manifest privacy within different industries and within innovation in itself. So
Mm.
it takes a group to drive that. It's not enough that somebody stands up and says, hey guys, listen to me, this is important, and it will become more important as time moves on. It is really this, 100 global visionaries, and there's probably many, many more out there. We had lots of people we were talking to who need to drive that holistically, and hopefully communicate the same message.
Mm. Just before I started chatting to you, I had an email in with 20 different ways that people are trying to take, should we say, naughty people, or what do you call them, trying to take advantage of COVID, ring up and saying you're on the list to have some company help or whatever it may be, just fill in this form. It's a constant challenge. So no wonder consumers and business people are becoming more conscious of how their data is being collected and then used. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's also a very good question, Malcolm. And I had been thinking about this a lot, and also felt personally impacted, actually. I think COVID actually has sharpened people's opinion about their personal data. When all this discussion came up as to how do I track you best, I want to know where you are, whom you met, with whom you interacted. I think that actually helped sharpen the understanding as to why privacy is important and what needs to be done. But I agree with you, not everything I see out there, I would actually subscribe to or even want to have. So I'm very critical when it comes to all these tracking apps. I still need to be convinced about it. I'm pretty sure that people only have the best in mind when they design it. But again, when we talk about those things, for me, privacy by design is a must. And that's where it has to start. So the privacy idea needs to be in the forefront of designing and innovating a product, even in times during COVID, which is very critical. But I could see in my environment, my neighborhood, people I'm talking and working to, that this really sharpened their senses, so to say, when it comes to their personal data and data privacy.
Yeah.
So in one sense, you could say COVID has helped, people to understand how important privacy and the right to your own personal data is.
Yeah, and it will continue to cause, hopefully, people to be a bit more astute and sensible on the data trust. I do adore, and I say adore, maybe that not be the right word, but I'm so excited about the way that you are so positive about the trust and integrity. I've interviewed over 100 CEOs and MDs in the last 2 to 3 months there, and some have discussed data and some haven't. And I just got a lot of feeling that maybe many of them have not yet considered how vulnerable they are.
Yeah, if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have said many people or many corporations are still in denial stage, specifically in Europe.
Yeah.
We have GDPR, but enforcement of the law itself is still lacking behind. Nothing is really happening. So many enterprises are there, and the top management as well. I think, should we, shouldn't we? Actually, does it apply to us, or is it something which is just for Google and Facebook? So to say.
Yeah.
That's what I call the denial stage. But again, this year, because of COVID, because of remote work, because of, many companies actually went digital from, completely digital from nowhere. That understanding has actually developed, and there is much more attention being paid to it right now than it was a year ago.
Yeah. Felix, it's crystal ball time. I know data analytics is constantly evolving at a breakneck pace, but please look into your crystal ball and tell us where you think data analytics will be in, say, 5 or 10 years' time. How will you be ahead of the curve for your customers at Truata?
Yeah, that's also a good question. Nobody has a crystal ball, but we believe that data will be front and center for every enterprise out there. And it will drive not only operational efficiencies, which you measure through data, It will drive product innovation. It will drive any kind of innovation, and it will actually help develop industries, so to say, yeah, or predict how my company can grow. Yeah. I call it the analytical maturity curve. Where you look, you have basically looking back at what had happened, and you look at your data and you try to understand why did this happen in the past. To very mature, I predict my future, and then I act actually against this prediction, and I'll be successful. And I think companies will ride this learning curve and enhance on the analytical maturity curve, and we will be in a very predictive environment in a few years from now. And that is something we are doing right today already. So I really hope that Truata can actually help many companies out there to get there faster than they would be able to do on their own.
Yeah, we're possibly on the curve now, just at the early adoption stage, rather than, moving towards any maturity, are we?
Yeah, no, I think we are still, majority of the cases is at the early adoption phase, which is really looking back, analyzing your data, customer retention, for instance, customer acquisition. For me, that's not the highest grade of analytics I can apply. And for many companies, it's actually now time to understand which data is at risk and which not. That's what I mentioned before. I have this huge data universe. Which can I use? Which can't I use? What is the risk if I use this? What is the risk if I use that? And that's where many companies are today. And that's where we're helping them to assess the risk, numerically assess the risk. So we can actually show them really where it is, and then we can help them mitigate the risk.
Excellent. Now, an old saying is, it used to be that 50% of my advertising is wasted. But the problem is, I don't know which 50%. I think that came from Unilever or something like that. Is that old hat now? How does Truata help marketers measure their marketing return on investment?
Yeah, so I think the big advantage by working with Truata and, for instance, utilizing Truata's anonymization service is that you can actually use 100% of your data universe, not only the one which is consented, because the one you have consented from your customer, you can use for a specific use case the customer is giving you consent for. We come in, we anonymize the data, so it's not considered personal data anymore. Consent doesn't apply, and time restrictions don't apply. So we actually help people really to utilize all of the data universe and not only fractions. So the question, which 50% are the right ones, doesn't apply anymore, because we provide them with 100% of anonymized data, which carry a lot of data utility, so they can use it all.
Excellent, excellent. That's going to put a smile not just on the marketing, but on the financial CEO's face as well. Felix, you're on the Meet the Leader show, so my next few questions are related to leadership. Businesses around the world have had to change. How's your personal remote leadership? Has it changed or evolved in any way in recent years? Have you got any top tips to pass on?
So I think it changed a lot. Maybe not over the past years, but maybe over the past 5 months. I was always a leader who wanted to interact in person with his employees, with the team, as often as possible. Same with customers. I prefer the personal interaction much over, a phone call, for instance. Now, circumstances don't allow that at this point in time. Like, I told you earlier, I'm being locked down in Austria since 5 months, and my team is in Dublin. So my leadership style had to enhance or evolve. And we have very consciously implemented that in Truata, not only for myself, the way I interact with the people, but also how we interact with the entire team. Communication to me always was the most important thing. It will remain the most important thing, but how, when, and what you communicate became much more important, because, this small talk on the alley, when you walk to the canteen, that's gone. And you need to be very careful not to overload people actually with Zoom calls, team calls, video conferences, phone calls, whatever. So we did actually a survey in Truata across all employees and asked them what works or doesn't work. And we had been very lucky because communication, leadership communication was outstanding. And, it was more about the environment in their home office and, how can we help them to be more effective or have more screens or whatever. I mean, my people, majority are data scientists, data analysts, or engineers. So usually when I walk through the office, they have all 5 or 6 screens and you see the numbers and the curves and whatever. So we provided them with all the support they need, and it actually works pretty well. Better than I thought. I'm
Right.
still, I'm still doubtful as how long a company can maintain the remote work and home office work environment, because at the end of the day, when you innovate, when you create new products, you want to sit together, you want to brainstorm, you want to whiteboard. That's much more difficult now than it was before. So I personally hope that the lockdown and COVID will go away soon, and we all meet in the office again.
Or we may evolve into a hybrid model, probably.
Yeah, I think midterm, that is definitely, you're definitely right, Michael. I think midterm, it will be a hybrid model. I mean, we have seen from very large enterprises, maybe Facebook, maybe Google, or even MasterCard, who have extended the from home work, office work, home office work for a long period of time. So we'll see how this evolves. It is a challenge on leaders, but I think we have managed very well. And it's, there's a new learning every day. So it helps me learn and develop myself as well.
Yeah, let's keep the focus upon people. In such a dynamic, constantly changing industry, you need talented people. So how do you motivate your team and keep them constantly engaged? After all, you presently can't give them your great perks, such as free healthy meals. When we all get back, if we ever get back to this new normal, how will your people approach change?
So I'm actually very proud of our team, of my team, because we all work for a purpose. And the purpose is doing well by doing good. What I mean with that is we actually can do something really good for consumers out there by protecting their personal identities, by enhancing their privacy. At the same time, we can do well as an enterprise. And my entire team acts the same way. So that's the spirit we all have. And that is self-motivating. Every day you get up in the morning and you think about it. It motivates you. Every time we can help a customer solving a problem, it's very motivating. We are filing patents. That's very motivating. It's not only about the perks. They are nice, but it is really about the common goal. And the purpose. You need to have a cause as a company. I strongly believe in that. If you don't have that, it's very difficult. But we have one, and we all stand behind it, and that is truly motivating for the team. And I was skeptical when we started home office. I never worked from a home office before because I didn't like it very much. I was very skeptical if you can keep the motivational level at the same level we had it before. I tell you, it was no problem. And that was a very nice learning.
Very, very interesting. How has COVID-19 affected the way you've had to run your business? What changes or adoptions have you had to make? Have you had to adapt to meet client needs, your customer needs? And is agility a key skill that you've had to demonstrate?
Yeah, so I think generally everything slowed down a little bit on the customer front, because companies had their own problems and try to figure out what to do now. So engagements slowed down. Many companies actually went into emergency mode right away, because we don't know what's in 5 or 6 months from now. That has relaxed quite a bit. So we are kind of back to normal. But what you mentioned before, the engagement with the customer, that really changed, because no meetings, no in-room meetings where you can actually start whiteboarding, as I mentioned before, where you can have deep discussions. It's a different way of building trust with a new engagement, with a new customer, via a video conference or a conference call than it is if you meet him in person. So that has changed, and we had to adapt a little bit. But I also have to say on this front, we did pretty well. So we are going our way. I'm pretty well with how the business develops. But it was a change, and people had to get used to it. And I take me as an example. I'm not talking about other people, but I have never spent in the last 25 years 5 months at the same place. Never. I had the most frequent flyer miles on all airlines you can imagine. I was traveling around the world. I was meeting people. I was meeting customers.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that's gone.
Yeah.
So, of course, it changes the way you work. And it requires a little bit of patience, but it does work at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think we've all been facing that. My wife has even gone to meet her mother, to stay with her mother for a few days just to get away from me. But that's look, it's hard to do this one because of the uncertainty. But where do you see Truata in 5 years' time? Your vision for the business?
It's a wish and a vision, I would say. So, Truata is a B2B proposition. So we support other businesses in order to serve their customers better and in a more privacy-enhanced way. Ideally, in 5 years from now, a dream would be, a vision would be, that consumers understand who Truata is. So the person Felix, the person Malcolm, the person out there understands who Truata is. And when the product comes and is enhanced by Truata, life is good. So I want to set some kind of a standard for what it really means to truly anonymize, to truly risk identify or risk mitigate. So I want to see a minimum threshold, and the minimum threshold should be at least what we are doing, or we should be doing better than the minimum threshold. But that's the vision I have for 4 to 5 years from now. And I'm not talking about commercials or where I want to take the company from a commercial perspective. It's just about getting this into everyone's mind, and make it a top priority, and not a nice to have thing, but a must have thing.
Yeah. I can personally see that in that 5 years' time, the way that the world is changing with social values and all these things coming through, that your focus upon privacy and integrity will be the thing that really will stand out from the crowd.
Yeah. I want to see people walk the talk. That would actually be personally very satisfying for me.
Okay. Felix, it's 3 wishes time. If I gave you 3 wishes for the perception of data analytics in business management, what would they be?
I actually would have 1 wish, but that's a big one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take away the other 2 and use them somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I would have 1 wish, and that is that everybody firmly believes and supports and acts again the idea that privacy is a fundamental human right. And your personal data is your personal data. It belongs to you, and you can decide what happens with it. If that happens, that would be fantastic. That would be my wish for everyone, and that is why I'm sitting at the helm of Truata, because for me that was the motivation. Helping to implement that, helping to create understanding around this, and convince people that it is indeed a fundamental human right, and you own your own data. And how you monetize that actually somewhere in the future, maybe it's your decision as well. Hopefully it will be. Currently it's not.
Felix Marx of Truata, I have thoroughly enjoyed meeting you, and I have thoroughly enjoyed learning about your culture that you're instilling in Truata and through to your customers. Thank you for the interview.
Malcolm, the pleasure was all mine. It was really fantastic talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.